buying a kayak, a karaoke machine, and a 40-pound bag of gummy bears at 2 in the morning, all from your bed, is a distinctly modern luxury. But it wasn't always this way. How did shopping, once a universally dreaded chore, transform into one of America's favorite pastimes?
It's a fascinating evolution, James. We moved from an era where buying a sack of flour was a day-long ordeal to our current frictionless experience. That journey really began in early America, in a place most people knew as the general store.
The general store. It sounds quaint, but the source describes it as a dim wooden building smelling of pickles, kerosene, and somebody's regret. That's quite a departure from the air-conditioned malls we've grown accustomed to.
Indeed. Imagine walking into a place with no aisles, no signs, and certainly no helpful staff. There was just one counter, one shopkeeper, and about 400 things stacked behind him you couldn't reach or inspect. You'd ask for flour, nails, a bonnet, or molasses, and he'd fetch each item, slowly, while perhaps recounting a story about his bad knee.
So, a simple list of 6 items could easily consume an entire morning. And the smell you mentioned earlier, a thick stew of leather, smoked fish, vinegar, ground coffee, lamp oil, and the faint barnyard note of whoever came in before you.
Exactly. Nothing was wrapped or sealed. Crackers lived in open barrels exposed to everything. The phrase bottom of the barrel wasn't a saying, it was a warning. You scooped your goods from bins and sacks, trusting, often against all evidence that the scoop was clean.
And choice, as we understand it, simply didn't exist. You'd have one kind of soap, one brand of tonic. If you didn't like it, your only option was a long ride home with an empty wagon.
There was no comparison shopping because there was no competition. The general store was the only show in town for a day's travel in any direction. The lighting was poor, adding to the general sense of grimness. It was a chore, pure and simple, something you put off until necessity forced your hand.
It paints a vivid picture of retail endurance, as the source puts it. It's hard to imagine shopping ever becoming a national hobby from such humble, dreary beginnings. But how did people even pay for these goods in a world with scarce coins?
Payment was another chaotic affair. Coins were rare, especially in rural areas, so barter was common. Farmers traded eggs, butter, or corn for goods they couldn't produce themselves. The shopkeeper became an accidental warehouse for everything the county produced, trying to sell it before it spoiled.
So every transaction involved a quiet guessing game about value. How many eggs for a yard of cloth? No apps, no posted exchange rates, just 2 people sizing each other up.
Yes, and the shopkeeper held most of the cards. He knew how badly you needed those nails and how many other people had already paid him in eggs. Beyond barter, there was the ledger system, a running account scratched into a large book. This was the original credit card, but with a social interest rate.
A social interest rate, meaning your debt wasn't private?
Not at all. The shopkeeper was your bank, lender, and judgmental accountant. Everyone in town seemed to know your balance. If you fell behind, he wouldn't send an email, he'd give you a meaningful look in front of your neighbors. Your reputation and your balance were essentially the same thing. Falling behind cost you standing, not just money.
It sounds like a system built entirely on trust and the fact that you couldn't easily skip town. You'd see this man every week, and he'd remember everything. But for those lucky few, a different kind of shopping experience came to them.
That's where the peddler comes in. Imagine a stranger trudging up your lane with a pack the size of a small cow, jingling with pins, ribbons, tin pots, and patent cures. For families living miles from the nearest town, the peddler was a sweaty miracle.
He brought the store to your door long before anyone thought to ship a package, and the source implies the job itself was physically brutal.
Absolutely. Peddlers walked enormous distances with loads that would buckle a mule. Later, some had a horse and wagon, which was a slight reduction in suffering. When he arrived, it was an event. He wasn't just a salesman, he was the news, the gossip, the entertainment, and the shopping mall, all in one travel-worn package.
So, this was probably the first time shopping felt remotely fun?
Likely so. The peddler was a performer. He knew bored farm families, starved for novelty, would buy more if the experience felt like a treat. He'd flatter the lady of the house, dazzle the children, and spin each ordinary ribbon into a marvel. It was influencer marketing 2 centuries before phones existed.
Of course, not every peddler was a saint. Many sold questionable tonics, long gone before the buyer realized they'd been swindled. There was no return policy when the store had legs and a head start.
Despite that, the peddler was crucial. He stitched together a vast, lonely countryside, carrying not just goods but ideas, styles, and a faint whiff of the wider world to people who rarely left their land. It was proof that the marketplace could come to you, an idea that would echo for centuries.
And yet, even with the peddler, one daily ritual of shopping sounds like a genuine horror we've thankfully been spared.
You're referring to haggling. For most of human history, nothing had a price tag. You'd ask what an item cost and then begin a tense negotiation that could last longer than a dental appointment.
Imagine doing that for socks, or every single thing you've ever bought, every single time.
The merchant would size you up, judge your clothes, your accent, and your apparent desperation, then announce an opening price designed to insult you. You'd respond with a price designed to insult him. Somewhere in the middle, after much sighing, you'd arrive at a price that left both of you feeling vaguely robbed.
It sounds exhausting, a skill not everyone possessed. A confident buyer might get a bargain, while a nervous one was financially a lamb among wolves.
The merchant could read you, show too much delight, and the price climbed. Show contempt, and he might sweeten the deal. Your face was your wallet. This wasn't just for big purchases. You haggled over bread, cloth, candles, eggs, every single item. Shopping was not relaxing. It was a series of arguments you had to win or lose all day long.
And it meant prices were wildly unequal. Two people could buy the exact same item on the same afternoon and pay completely different amounts, purely based on their negotiation skill.
Exactly. There was no fairness, only negotiation. It's difficult to fall in love with shopping when shopping actively fights back. So when relief finally arrived, it wasn't a grand invention, but something deceptively small.
The humble price tag, a small paper rectangle that quietly changed the entire world.
Yes, arriving in the 1800s, suddenly an item cost what the sign said it cost. The same for everyone. No arguing, no insulting, no guessing if the shopkeeper liked your face. This little square of honesty made big stores possible because you can't haggle with 200 customers at once.
It sounds boring, but the price tag took the dread out of buying. And dread, it turns out, was the only thing keeping shopping from becoming fun.
Merchants initially found it strange. Telling a customer the actual price, the same price for everyone, felt unnatural. But those who embraced it discovered honesty was efficient. A customer who knew the cost could simply decide, without needing persuasion or argument.
It also introduced a moral idea. Why should a sharp talker pay less than a shy widow for the same sugar? Fixed prices made everyone equal at the counter, which customers appreciated.
The most revolutionary part, however, was what fixed prices did for store size. If every sale needs negotiation, your shop is limited by the number of arguments you can have. The price tag broke that limit, allowing stores to serve hundreds of customers at once because the prices did the talking.
This really unlocked the future of shopping. No fixed prices, no giant stores, no self-service. The price tag is the unglamorous plumbing beneath the cathedral, the boring rule that made the spectacle possible.
It changed how shopping felt in your chest. The anxiety, the bracing for battle, the worry of being fooled, all gone. In its place came something almost relaxing. You could wander, look, and consider, knowing the number on the tag was final. For the first time, you could browse without dread, and that was the seed from which a national hobby bloomed.
So merchants accidentally made shopping pleasant, and once it was pleasant, they started asking, what if we made it magnificent? That question led to the department store.
Stepping into a department store was like entering a palace after the dim general store. Marble floors, glittering chandeliers, glass cases sparkling with things you didn't know existed, but suddenly couldn't live without. Entire floors of temptation. No one rushed you. No one even watched you much. For the first time, you were allowed to wander, touch, want, and leave without buying a single thing. This was new and a little dangerous.
The sheer scale alone must have been overwhelming in the most pleasant way. It was an occasion, not a mere shop, a place where you deserve to spend your afternoon among beautiful things.
And the radical freedom to just look. In the old world, entering a store meant committing to a transaction. Department stores discarded that. You could drift from counter to counter, examining silk and silver, picking things up, setting them down with no obligation. It was the original just browsing things.
And the goods were out in the open, piled into displays, lit to make your heart beat faster. You didn't have to ask a clerk to show you the gloves. They were right there, daring you to imagine them as yours.
It was a brand new, deeply effective way to make you want. The stores also offered comforts that had nothing to do with shopping. Restrooms, lounges, restaurants, tea rooms. A respectable woman could spend an entire day there in comfort and safety. It became a destination.
So, the longer they kept you there, surrounded by lovely things, the more likely you were to leave with a parcel or three. Comfort was the bait.
Precisely. The department store rewired what shopping meant. It was no longer a quick, dreary errand. It was an experience, an outing, a small luxury. You came for a spool of thread and left having seen wonders, sipped tea, and acquired a hat you hadn't known you wanted. Shopping had become entertainment.
And the cleverest merchants soon realized they didn't even need you to come inside to start the wanting. They could begin right there on the cold sidewalk through a pane of glass.
That's window shopping. As stores grew grand, owners realized the sidewalk was an audience. They turned their front windows into glowing little theaters of desire. Mannequins posed in the latest fashions, goods arranged like treasure. You could stand on the cold pavement, nose to the glass, planning an entire imaginary life you couldn't afford.
It's pure, free entertainment, and it costs nothing.
The invention of the big glass window was a marvel. Shopfronts were traditionally small and dim. Large, clear panes of plate glass gave merchants a stage facing the busiest street. They built entire worlds behind that glass, lit to dazzle everyone, paying customer or not. The street became a free gallery.
Window dressers, essentially artists, whose sole job was to arrange displays so beautifully that passers-by would stop. Each window told a tiny story, a glimpse of a glamorous life.
And the genius was that you needed no coin to enjoy the show. It was the people's entertainment, a free spectacle. The poor and the rich looked through the same glass at the same treasures, equally able to dream, even if not equally able to buy. It democratized desire.
But it wasn't charity. Those gorgeous windows planted the want, the dream that would follow you home and whisper for days. Wanting is the first step to buying, and the window planted that want for free, waiting for payday.
It was advertising disguised as art, a sales pitch that asked nothing of you tonight except that you remember it tomorrow. Window shopping rewired buying, splitting it into two parts, wanting and having, making the wanting a pleasure on its own. That habit lives in us still, every time we scroll past things at midnight with no intention of buying.
For families far out in the countryside, though, these modern marketplace wonders still felt impossibly distant until a single fat, magical book landed in the mailbox.
The mail order catalog, so thick it could stop a door, so full of wonders it could stop a child's heart. It brought everything a town store could never stock: dresses, tools, toys, furniture, even entire houses in pieces. Families read it by lamplight like a novel.
It solved a massive problem for rural living. If you were far out in the country, your shopping was held hostage by the local general store, with its limited goods and arbitrary prices.
The catalog blew that wide open. Suddenly, a farmer in the middle of nowhere had access to the same vast selection as a city dweller, often at lower prices, with no haggling. The monopoly of the local store met its match in the mailbox.
And the selection was staggering, not a thin pamphlet, but hundreds of pages, thousands of items from boots to pianos to tombstones, even build-it-yourself houses.
It was the everything store a century before that phrase was typed into a screen. The catalog also became a beloved object in the home, treated as reading material, entertainment, a window onto a wider world. People nicknamed it the wish book.
A wish book of pure, affordable longing, and it taught rural America a new way to shop based on trust and patience. You'd pick an item from a picture, send money, and then wait weeks for a box to arrive.
That small leap of faith in every order, a hope that the real coat would look like the drawn one. It was the great-grandparent of clicking buy now and trusting a stranger to send what they promised. The catalog detached shopping from place entirely. The marketplace had been printed, bound, and mailed directly to the most isolated farmhouse.
But a wish book is only a cruel tease if what you order can't actually reach you. And that's where rural delivery came in.
Before rural delivery, picking up mail meant a long trip to a distant post office, defeating the purpose of ordering by mail. Then the post began coming to you, right to a little box at the end of your lane. The catalog dream now had a delivery route.
This sounds laughably basic now, but at the time it was transformative. A carrier would travel country roads, rain or shine, stopping at each box to drop off letters, newspapers, and increasingly, parcels.
It completed and supercharged the catalog's promise. The entire cycle of shopping could happen without you leaving your land. The trip to town, once unavoidable, evaporated for a whole category of purchases. The store had come to the end of your driveway.
And as bigger packages began flowing, a dedicated parcel service grew to handle them. This was the crucial link, the muscle behind the magic.
The infrastructure of modern delivery, the great invisible machine that moves your stuff, was quietly assembled, one rural mailbox at a time. This humble box made distance almost irrelevant. The lonely farmhouse and the bustling city now had the same superpower: to want a thing, order it, and have it arrive without a journey.
But not all shopping moved to the mailbox. Back in town, a brand new kind of store was about to make buying feel less like a serious errand and more like simple, cheap fun.
That's the five and dime, built on a gloriously simple idea. Everything should cost about a nickel or a dime, and you should be allowed to touch all of it. No counter, no clerk guarding merchandise, just open tables piled with candy, ribbons, toys, and small useless treasures laid out for grabbing.
It was the first time shopping felt like play instead of a transaction. You came in with a few coins and left with a paper bag of joy.
The brilliant simplicity of the pricing was key. You didn't have to wonder if you could afford something. It was a nickel. The fear was gone, the math was gone. You could buy on a whim, on a giggle, because no single item could possibly hurt your wallet. It made spending feel weightless, which is precisely when spending becomes a hobby.
And the radical openness. Unlike the general store, the five and dime threw everything onto open tables. You could pick things up, turn them over, compare. The merchandise was a playground.
The range of small delights was the real magic. A dizzying jumble of inexpensive goods, candy, toys, hair combs, gadgets. None of it essential, all of it tempting. You didn't go because you needed something. You went because it was fun.
And it was a place where everyone felt welcome. A child with a few pennies got the same open tables as anyone else. It made the pure pleasure of shopping available to everyone, regardless of their pocketbook.
Many had a lunch counter too, where you could get a sandwich or pie for almost nothing. So a trip became a whole small outing. The five and dime proved that people would happily shop for the sheer joy of it, spending small amounts on things they didn't need just because it felt good. This insight that buying could be fun rather than functional was about to be weaponized.
Weaponized by the ad man, whose entire job was to make you feel incomplete.
Exactly. Advertising grew up alongside big stores, and it was very good at its work. Newspapers and magazines bloomed with pictures of happier, cleaner, better-smelling people who owned something you didn't. The message was gentle. Your life is fine, but it could be wonderful if only you bought this.
So you weren't just a person with needs, you were a customer with desires, and someone in an office had figured out how to cultivate those desires like crops.
Early advertising was mostly informational. The new breed of ad man realized that telling you a thing existed left money on the table. The real trick was making you feel something. So ads stopped describing products and started describing the better person you might become if you owned them. They sold the feeling, and the soap came along for the ride.
And the favorite feeling to sell was a gentle, nagging inadequacy. Ads introduced worries you'd never had. Were your teeth white enough? Did your home look as nice? Was there a faint, shameful odor following you around?
For every freshly invented anxiety, there was conveniently a product to cure it. They weren't selling mouthwash as much as the fear of being the person who needed mouthwash and didn't know it. Ad men got scientific, studying which words, pictures, and colors worked best. They learned to attach products to your deepest hopes: romance, success, fitting in.
Buy this and be loved. Buy that and be admired. It was psychology aimed squarely at your soft spots, dressed up in cheerful pictures, absorbed without you ever quite noticing.
They also taught you to want things on a schedule. Why sell one tube of toothpaste when you could convince someone to buy a fresh one every month forever? Advertising helped invent the idea of constant, repeating purchases. You were meant to keep buying, replacing, upgrading.
So the ad man performed lasting magic, turning shopping from a grim response to need into a response to feeling, to mood, to the ache of wanting more. Desire became a renewable resource, but to truly own your loyalty, the ad man needed something for you to be loyal to, a name.
That's the brand, a stroke of marketing genius. Back when goods came loose from barrels, one bag of oats was like another. Then companies started stamping their names on pretty boxes, promising their flour, soap, or crackers were special, trustworthy, and worth a little extra. You stopped buying things and started buying names.
A cracker was no longer just a cracker. It was a friend with a logo who had never let you down, at least not in the commercials.
The brand replaced the anonymous barrel. The sealed box promised cleanliness and consistency. They weren't just selling crackers, they were selling a guarantee that this box would be exactly as good as the last one. This quietly rewired your behavior at the shelf.
Once you tried a brand and liked it, you remembered the name, looked for the familiar box, and reached for it again without reevaluating every option. That's loyalty, and it's incredibly valuable.
A company that owned a spot in your memory and habits owned a piece of your wallet for years. You were no longer making a fresh decision each visit. You were following a relationship, returning to the trusted name. And brands let companies charge a little more for the same thing.
You weren't paying for better soap, you were paying for confidence, for the comfort of the known. It's a remarkable trick, charging extra for familiarity, and we fall for it cheerfully to this day.
So the branded box turned anonymous goods into characters with personalities, products you could trust, prefer, and feel oddly fond of. It built the invisible machinery of modern buying, where you reach past the cheaper, identical option to grab the name you know every time on autopilot. The ad men and brands had perfected the art of making you want. All that wanting needed somewhere grand to go.
That's downtown. The heart of any American town in its busy heyday, the closest thing your grandparents had to a mall with no roof.
Streetcars clanged past rows of shops, each window dressed to dazzle. People strolled in their good clothes because going downtown to shop was an event you dressed up for. Department stores, dime stores, hat shops, all crowded together. For decades, this noisy, glamorous street was where America went to see, to be seen, and to spend.
The sheer density was the magic. Dozens of stores shoulder to shoulder, putting the whole world of goods within easy walking distance. The grand department store anchored one corner, the cheerful 5 and dime down the way.
And getting there was an adventure, usually by streetcar. Before everyone had an automobile, electric streetcar lines converged on the city center, funneling shoppers into the heart of the action. It was the one spot everyone could easily reach.
So it was an occasion, not an errand. You dressed for it. It was a stage, and everyone was both audience and performer. You went to buy, but also to stroll, admire windows, nod at neighbors, feel the buzz of the crowd.
Shopping had fused with socializing and showing off. Downtown offered everything you needed to stay all day. Restaurants, theaters, tea rooms. You could browse, eat lunch, catch a show, and shop more. It was a destination for the whole day.
So downtown was the undisputed king of American shopping, a dazzling public heart where commerce, glamour, and community met. It seemed unstoppable, but its throne sat squarely on those streetcar tracks and that walkable crowd. Change how people moved, and you'd change everything.
And every long day downtown needed a place to sit and catch your breath. Shopping found its perfect pit stop at the soda fountain. Tucked inside drugstores and department stores, these gleaming marble counters served up fizzy drinks, ice cream, and gossip.
After an exhausting afternoon of wanting things, you could perch on a stool, order something cold and sweet, and watch the world go by. It sounds like it transformed shopping from an errand into an outing.
The scene at the counter was genuinely beautiful. Polished marble, swiveling stools, gleaming taps. The soda jerk, an apron-clad showman, mixed fizzy concoctions and built towering sundaes with a flourish. It was theater as much as refreshment.
And the menu was pure indulgence: cold sodas, ice cream floats, banana splits. Nobody came for nourishment, they came for a treat, a reward after a long day of browsing.
It was the original, "you deserve this," decades before that phrase was advertised. The genius of placing them inside stores was that it kept you there longer and sent you back out happy. A tired shopper might go home, but offer them a cool rest stop, and they'd refuel and wander back into the aisles.
So the soda fountain was a clever charging station for shoppers, disguised as a delicious indulgence. It also turned shopping into a social event, a place to meet friends, flirt, and be seen.
It became a community hub, a casual living room where the line between shopping and socializing blurred. The humble soda fountain cemented a powerful idea. A shopping trip should be a whole pleasant experience. Shopping was now a day out, a pleasure with a cherry on top. But all this gentle, walkable, streetcar-fed glamour was about to be upended by a loud, smoking, freedom-granting machine parked at the curb.
The automobile. It sounds like it rearranged American life and shopping habits right along with it.
Suddenly, you were no longer trapped near the streetcar line. You could drive anywhere, which felt liberating until everyone tried to drive to the same crowded downtown and discovered there was nowhere to park. Merchants noticed this misery, and they began dreaming of stores with something downtown could never offer: a vast, glorious, free ocean of parking.
For generations, where you shopped was dictated by streetcar lines and how far you could carry parcels. The automobile shattered those limits, opening up entire regions.
But that freedom had a cruel twist. As more families bought cars, they all headed to the same beloved downtown. The narrow old streets, built for walkers and streetcars, choked with traffic. And once you crawled into the city center, there was nowhere to park.
The dense, walkable downtown that had been its strength became a disaster for the automobile. This parking misery poisoned the joy of going downtown.
The glamorous trip now began with a slow, fuming crawl, ending with circling blocks, hunting for a spot, dreading the long walk with heavy bags. What was the point of the car's freedom if shopping meant an hour of stress?
So clever merchants started dreaming of stores not crammed downtown, but out on cheaper land at the edge of town, easy to drive to, surrounded by huge, free parking.
Pull right up, leave the car steps from the door, load purchases straight into the trunk. To a driver, that vision was pure paradise, and it spelled doom for the crowded city center. The automobile, that gift of freedom, quietly began to hollow out the very downtown it had once delivered crowds to. Shopping packed up and followed the car out to the open edges of town.
And the first manifestation of this was the supermarket. Forget the polite grocer who fetched everything. The supermarket was enormous, bright, and slightly overwhelming.
Instead of asking a clerk for each item, you pushed through wide aisles and gathered your own food from towering shelves. Meat over here, bread over there, a wall of canned goods that went on forever. It was faster, cheaper, and far more tempting because now you could see absolutely everything, including the 11 things you didn't come for.
The old counter-service grocer was personal but achingly slow, requiring a small army of clerks. The supermarket made a radical decision: get rid of the fetching. Let customers fetch for themselves.
This single change, self-service, was its core power. By letting you roam and gather your own groceries, the store served more people with fewer staff, slashing costs and prices. Food was cheaper, shopping faster, because you weren't waiting. You became the unpaid worker in your own shopping trip, and somehow it felt like freedom.
And the sheer scale. The old grocer was cramped. The supermarket gathered meat, produce, dairy, bread, 1,000 other items, all under one enormous roof. One stop, one building, everything you needed for a week.
But the truly clever part was that seeing everything made you want more. In the old store, you asked for what was on your list. In the supermarket, every product sat on open shelves, brightly packaged, waiting to catch your eye. You came for bread and milk and found yourself face to face with cookies, chips, and a dozen colorful boxes whispering your name. The open shelves did the selling, silently, all day long.
So the supermarket did more than make groceries cheaper and faster. It retrained how you shopped, turning you into a self-guided hunter wandering aisles laid out by people who understood exactly how your eyes and appetite worked. You left with more than you planned every single time, and you blamed only yourself.
But all this gathering needed something to carry it, and what arrived to help you was far more cunning than it appeared.
The humble shopping cart, an invention so clever and devious it deserves its own segment.
When supermarkets first appeared, shoppers could only buy as much as 2 arms could carry, which limited their spending. Then a clever store owner thought, what if you gave people a rolling basket on wheels? At first, people refused, embarrassed, but once the habit took hold, baskets grew into carts, and carts grew into wheeled wagons, and your grocery bill grew right along with them.
The simple, brutal logic was that a shopper carrying goods has a built-in limit. The moment their arms ache and fill up, shopping stops. That aching limit capped how much customers could buy.
Solving the carrying problem removed the natural stopping point. With a cart, your arms never got tired, your basket never quite filled, so you simply kept shopping. The store gently lifted the ceiling on how much one person could buy, and shoppers obligingly bought more to fill the empty space.
But the human part of it is wonderful. People initially refused, especially men, finding it embarrassing to push a wheeled basket like a toddler. Store owners actually hired people to walk the aisles, pushing carts and pretending to shop just to normalize it.
Once the embarrassment wore off, the cart only grew because bigger carts meant bigger sales. The modest basket swelled into roomy metal wagons with child seats and lower racks, enough capacity for a week's provisions. Every increase in size was a quiet invitation to buy more.
So the shopping cart, that squeaky, wobbly companion, is one of the most effective sales tools ever devised. It removed the last natural brake on spending, the simple ache of carrying, and replaced it with effortless, ever-expanding capacity. You buy more because you can.
And the cart was only one piece of a much larger, cunning system, an entire store designed to lead you gently astray. That's the core of self-service and the impulse buy. The store has been arranged by people who studied exactly how you walk, look, and reach.
The candy sits by the register for a reason. Expensive brands are at eye level for a reason. You come in for 3 things and leave with 13, genuinely believing each of those 10 extras was your own idea. But it's not an accident, it's design.
The moment stores let you serve yourself, they handed you freedom, but also a powerful new weapon for themselves. They didn't have to persuade you through a salesperson, they could persuade you through the layout itself, where things sat, how they were lit, what caught your eye. The store became a silent salesman.
Eye level is sacred ground. Pricier, more profitable products are placed where your gaze naturally falls, easy to see and grab. Cheaper options are banished to high shelves or near your ankles.
You think you're freely choosing, but your eyes were guided to a particular shelf, and staples like milk, eggs, bread are often tucked at the very back, so fetching them marches you past aisle after aisle of tempting things you didn't plan to buy. The path itself is a sales pitch.
By the time you reach the essential item, you've run a gauntlet of bright packaging, and your cart has mysteriously acquired several passengers never on your list.
Then comes the masterstroke, the checkout lane. You're trapped in a slow line, idle, bored, surrounded by candy, gum, magazines, small, cheap treats. This is the impulse zone, designed for a waiting, restless shopper who is vulnerable to tossing one more little thing onto the belt.
Self-service, that gift of freedom and convenience, turns out to be one of the most sophisticated traps in shopping history. You believe you're the captain of your own cart, choosing freely, but the seas have been charted to steer you exactly where the store wishes.
Every extra item feels like your own bright idea, which is precisely why it works so beautifully. And this cunning new way of selling was about to leap out of the single store and reshape entire neighborhoods as shopping chased the growing crowds out to the edge of town.
That's the move to the suburbs and the strip mall. As neighborhoods sprawled, stores followed the people, lining up in long, low rows along new highways.
The strip mall, a humble parade of shops sharing one giant lot. It wasn't beautiful or grand, but it was easy. You could park right out front, dash in, and leave without fighting downtown traffic. Convenience had become the whole point.
The Great Migration set it in motion. Families poured into suburbs with space and cars and no desire to drive back into congested downtown for a frying pan. Where the people went, the stores followed.
So merchants set up shop along the new roads in the form of the strip mall, plain and practical. A single long building divided into shops, all facing a large shared parking lot. A grocery store, a drugstore, hardware, diner, laundromat lined up side by side.
And that parking was the killer feature. After the downtown nightmare, here was blissful relief. Park a few steps from the door, run your errand, back in minutes. No traffic, no circling for a spot. The strip mall sold convenience, and to a busy suburban family, that convenience was worth more than any glamour.
This quietly changed shopping's nature. Downtown was a destination, a dressed-up day out. The strip mall was a quick, efficient pit stop you swung by in everyday clothes. Shopping was shedding its sense of occasion, becoming faster, plainer, woven into ordinary errands.
So the suburbs and strip malls marked a turning point. Shopping had officially followed the automobile out of the glamorous city center into the practical landscape of the edge. Easy parking beat grand architecture. But some dreamers looked at this plain row of shops and thought, surely we can do better. Recapture the magic of downtown, but with all the easy parking and a roof over the whole thing.
That's the enclosed mall, an entire downtown rebuilt indoors, sealed off from rain, snow, and the inconvenient passage of time. The temperature is always perfect. Fountains burble, there are no windows and no clocks because the builders wanted you to forget how long you'd been there. It was designed as a town square with a roof.
The grand ambition was to have everything, the wonder, variety, and occasion of downtown, married to the easy parking and suburban convenience of the strip mall, all under one enormous roof.
Dozens, even hundreds of stores along bright indoor avenues, ringed by a vast ocean of parking. Downtown reborn, but tamed, controlled, and protected from every inconvenience. And control was its genius. Out in real downtown, shopping was at the mercy of weather. Inside the mall, the climate was always flawless, gentle, eternal springtime.
And the famous tricks to bend your sense of time. No windows to the outside, no clocks on the walls. With no daylight, no time staring back, you lost track of hours, drifting in a pleasant, timeless daze. A casino that happened to sell sweaters.
The mall leaned into a soothing atmosphere. Fountains, greenery, soft music, wide walkways. None of it sold products directly. All of it made you comfortable, content to linger. A relaxed shopper is a generous shopper, and the mall worked tirelessly to keep you relaxed and in no hurry to leave.
So the enclosed mall became the crowning palace of American shopping, a self-contained kingdom where you could happily lose an entire day. Shopping was now a destination. And for one group, the mall became more than a place to shop. It became a whole world, almost a home. And
the teenager's kingdom. For decades, the mall was where an entire generation grew up. Kids dropped off on weekends with a few crumpled dollars, no plan. They roamed in packs, flirted by the fountain, lingered in the music store, bought a single soft pretzel they made last for hours. It was a hangout disguised as a shopping center.
it was perfect for them. Too old to stay home, too young to drive anywhere truly exciting. The mall was safe, supervised in spirit, full of other kids, yet thrillingly independent.
And the mall asked almost nothing in return. You didn't need much money to belong. A teenager could spend an entire afternoon drifting, trying on clothes with no intention of buying, listening to records, nursing a snack. The mall didn't chase you out for not spending, it let you linger, and lingering was the whole point.
It was the great social arena, the place to see and be seen. You went for the people, to meet friends, to bump into someone from class, to walk slow laps and observe your town's social universe. Romances bloomed, friendships were forged.
Certain spots became sacred. The music store, the arcade, the food court. They were landmarks in a teenager's map of the world. For a long golden stretch, the mall was far more than a shopping center. It was a kingdom they ruled on weekends, a place to practice being adults. And maybe, almost as an afterthought, they bought a thing or two.
All this lingering and spending required something to spend, and a small piece of plastic was about to rewrite the rules of buying entirely.
The credit card, the single most dangerous thing to ever fit inside a wallet. It replaced the shopkeeper's dusty ledger with a sleek piece of plastic, whispering a thrilling new idea. You didn't need the money right now. You could have the thing today and pay for it later.
Spending stopped feeling like losing money because no money seemed to leave your hands at all. It was magic, freedom, and a trap with a very pleasant interest rate.
It's the descendant of that old ledger. Buy now, pay later made portable and universal. But where the ledger tied you to one shopkeeper, the card let you carry your credit anywhere. And the truly powerful trick was what it did to the feeling of spending.
Handing over cash hurts a little. You watch it leave, feel your wallet thin. The card removed that sting. You presented plastic, signed, and walked out with your treasure. No visible money lost at all.
The pain of paying was postponed to a vague future. A purchase with no immediate pain is a purchase you make far more freely. This quietly dissolved the oldest limit on shopping, the simple fact of how much money you actually had. For most of history, spending was capped by coins in your pocket. The credit card lifted that cap.
Now you could buy things you couldn't yet afford, betting on a future where the money would appear. And here's where the pleasant trap revealed its teeth, the interest.
If you didn't pay the full balance promptly, the unpaid amount grew, a fee for the privilege of spending tomorrow's money today. Many people discovered that the easy magic of buy now had a long tail of pay later and then pay more. The credit card completed a journey of separating the joy of buying from the pain of paying. It made spending feel weightless, instant, almost free, which is precisely what made it so dangerous.
But before plastic made spending instant, there was a slower, gentler way to buy what you couldn't yet afford, built on patience instead of debt.
That's layaway and installments. With layaway, the store held your treasure in the back while you paid for it bit by bit until it was yours. With installment plans, you took the sofa home today and mailed in payments for what felt like the rest of your natural life. It taught Americans a powerful lesson. You didn't have to choose between wanting something and waiting for it. You could do both, suspended in a delicious state of almost owning it.
Layaway sounds like the more innocent of the two. You paid gradually, and only when it was fully paid did you take it home. Every week, your attachment to that item deepened.
By the time it was yours, you'd been dreaming of it for a month, and it felt less like a purchase and more like a reward you'd earned through patience. Installment plans took the opposite approach. You got the pleasure first and spread the pain out behind it. This is how ordinary families furnished whole homes with big, expensive goods they could never have bought outright.
Both systems dissolved the old strict rule that you could only have what you could pay for in full right now. These patient little plans were laying the emotional groundwork for everything that came after.
They were a gentler, slower cousin of the credit card, a training course in buying beyond the moment. And soon, the marketplace would find a way to reach you, not on the street or in a store at all, but right in your own living room, glowing in the corner.
Television. Advertising had already learned to follow you into print. Now it strolled into your living room with sound, motion, and a jingle you'd be humming against your will.
Commercials showed glittering products in glowing homes, and later whole channels appeared that sold things around the clock. You could now shop without a store, without a street, without even standing up.
The leap television represented for the ad man was huge. A printed ad was static. TV gave the picture voice, a tune, and movement. Products could be demonstrated, accompanied by music, narrated by a warm voice, beamed directly into your home.
And the jingle was a weapon of terrifying power. A catchy tune attached to a product would lodge itself in your brain for years. Television also painted aspirational worlds you were invited to envy. Bright, happy families and spotless kitchens. You weren't really being sold dish soap. You were being sold a vision of the contented life that came with it.
Then came channels devoted entirely to selling around the clock, blurring the line between watching and buying. A friendly host would display an item, talk it up with urgency, and invite you to pick up the phone and order instantly.
The store never closed and never made you stand up. Television completed a quiet revolution, bringing the entire apparatus of wanting and buying directly into your living room. But out in the physical world, stores were about to swing in the opposite direction, growing vast, cavernous, and absurdly enormous.
The warehouse club, the big box store, arrived with a simple promise. Everything would be cheaper if you bought an frankly unreasonable amount of it. Why one jar of mustard when you could own a tub large enough to bathe a toddler?
The buildings are the size of airplane hangars. Carts are the size of canoes. You come in for paper towels and leave with a year's supply, a folding kayak, and a rotisserie chicken you'll eat in the parking lot. The sheer physical scale alone was designed to dwarf you.
Forget the cozy shop. The big box store was a vast, windowless cavern with soaring ceilings, concrete floors, goods stacked to the heavens. You felt small, almost lost, surrounded by overwhelming abundance.
The core trick was the bargain of buying in bulk. The more of a thing you bought at once, the cheaper each unit became. That math was deeply satisfying to the human brain. You weren't just shopping, you were being thrifty, even as you wheeled away enough mayonnaise for a decade.
And the warehouse club added a twist: membership. You paid a fee just to walk through the doors, and strangely, that fee made you want to shop harder to get your money's worth.
The stores leaned into the thrill of the unexpected. Amid towering pallets of basics, you'd suddenly stumble across a folding kayak, a hot tub, a diamond ring, or a giant television. This randomness kept you wandering, curious, tossing things into your canoe-sized cart that you absolutely hadn't come for.
So the big box store and warehouse club performed a delicious sleight of hand. They dressed up enormous spending as careful saving, and once a year, this appetite for deals would build to a frenzied peak.
Black Friday, the one day a year shopping removes its mask and reveals itself as a contact sport. The morning after a peaceful family feast, people turn into a dawn stampede for discounted televisions. They camp overnight, and ordinary citizens transform into a thundering herd willing to wrestle a stranger for a slow cooker.
It makes no sense. The timing is strange, immediately after a holiday devoted to gratitude. One evening you're thankful, the next you're trampling someone for an appliance.
The deals were bait, engineered to short-circuit reason. Stores offered a small number of items at prices so low they seemed like errors, doorbuster bargains to lure crowds. The catch was scarcity, only a few treasures, so getting one meant being first, fast, fierce.
And the rituals grew epic. Tents in parking lots, families coordinating like military units, assigning targets. When doors burst open, the crowd surged, a stampede of bargain hunters.
What made it strange was that the buying floated almost entirely free of need. Nobody camped overnight because they desperately required a new TV. They did it for the deal, for the win, for the sheer electric thrill of the hunt. Black Friday revealed that shopping was no longer about acquiring what you needed. At its extreme, it had become a thrill, a ritual, a national event.
But this hunger for the deal didn't need to wait for one wild morning a year. An entire kind of store was built to deliver that feeling all year round.
The outlet mall, built entirely on the deep satisfaction of getting a deal. Name brands at slashed prices, conveniently located just far enough away to make the trip feel like an adventure. It didn't matter if you needed anything. What mattered was the hunt, the tags announcing how much you supposedly saved. You could spend $200 and somehow feel like you'd made money.
The clever distance was no accident. Outlet malls out beyond the edge of town, a real drive from anywhere. The journey turned a simple shopping trip into an expedition, a day-long adventure.
And the magic of the brand name at a discount pushed two powerful buttons. You desired the famous names, now marked down. You got to feel both fashionable and frugal in a single purchase. The genius was how savings were presented. Every tag displayed the original higher price and your lower price, the gap spelled out as your reward.
You did the happy arithmetic in your head, and that number felt like winnings. The store brilliantly reframed spending as saving.
This completely changed your reason for being there. You didn't come to the outlet mall for a specific thing. You came for the hunt, the treasure-seeking thrill. The outlet mall perfected the idea that the bargain itself is the product. The savings were the real souvenir. But all of this, malls, outlets, warehouses, still required you to get in the car. That too was about to change.
The internet awakens, the strange dawn of buying things through a humming beige computer. At first it seemed absurd, typing your card number into a screen, trusting an object would appear days later.
Early online stores were clunky, loading one tiny picture at a time while you wondered if you'd been robbed. But the old wish book had simply changed clothes. The endless catalog was back, now glowing, searchable, and open at every hour of the night.
It felt genuinely strange. For all of history, buying meant physical connection. Now you typed sensitive numbers into a screen, trusting an invisible company. The early experience did little to soothe those fears.
But beneath the clumsy surface, something profound was stirring. This was the old wish book reborn. The marketplace brought to your home with waiting and trust built in. Only now it glowed, it could be searched instantly, and it was never, ever closed.
That last part was revolutionary. Every physical store had hours. The online store had no limits. It waited at 3 in the morning, on holidays, in winter, endlessly open, endlessly stocked.
This awkward beginning was more important than it looked. The clunky websites were the first stirrings of a shift that would topple the mighty mall. Shopping was coming back to your house, faster, smarter, and frighteningly easy. And it was about to get easier still until buying a thing took no more effort than a single idle tap.
The doorstep miracle. The moment shopping became nearly effortless, frictionless, dangerously easy. Online stores learned to remember you, your address, your card, your past desires.
Buying something required no more effort than a single tap. A thought would cross your mind at midnight, and a few hours later a box would appear on your porch as if summoned by a wizard. No clerks, no carts, no parking, no pants required.
The quiet genius of being remembered was key. Early online stores made you type everything fresh, a small friction. Then they learned to remember it all, removing anything to slow you down. All that remained between a whim and a purchase was a single frictionless tap.
That removal of friction was everything, because friction was the last thing holding your spending back. Every little obstacle in the old way of buying gave you a moment to pause. One-click buying erased those moments. Wanting and buying fused into a single instant.
And the speed of arrival felt like sorcery. In catalog days, you waited weeks. Now, tap at midnight, box appears next day. Desire and delivery drew so close that buying felt like instant gratification.
And the whole thing required nothing of you, not even leaving your bed. This was the final destination. Where ancestors braved mud for flour, you now tap a glowing rectangle and a box appears. When acquiring becomes that easy, that frictionless, a strange thing happens to why we do it at all. Buying stops being about the things entirely.
Which brings us to the strangest destination of all, retail therapy, where buying things stopped being about the things at all.
Somewhere along this long journey, shopping quietly became a mood, a comfort, a cure. You have a bad day, so you treat yourself. You feel anxious, so you browse. The act of choosing, wanting, and acquiring now soothes something deep and restless inside us, which is exactly what every shopkeeper, adman, and mall builder secretly hoped for.
Every step led to this. The price tag took away dread. The department store added wonder. The adman planted wanting. The brand offered comfort. The mall built the palace. And the screen put it in your pocket. Buying was stripped of its pain and stuffed with pleasure until the act itself felt good, apart from whatever you bought.
It's rarely the object that soothes you. It's the choosing, the small thrill of deciding, of exercising control. It's the wanting, the pleasant flicker of desire. It's the acquiring, the brief glow of having gained something new. None of this requires the thing to be useful or even good. The comfort lives in the ritual itself, which is why the box, once opened, often leaves the feeling behind.
And this was the destination merchants were steering toward. A customer who shops only when they need something is limited, but a customer who shops to feel better, to lift a mood, to soothe a worry, that customer never runs out of reasons.
By tying buying to feeling, the marketplace found a well of demand that never empties, because feelings, unlike pantries, are never truly full. There's something both marvelous and a little melancholy in where we've ended up. Marvelous, because shopping can genuinely comfort us. Melancholy, because a chore that once simply met our needs has become a feeling we reach for to fill something the goods can never quite satisfy. The cure, it turns out, wears off.
From the dim general store to the midnight tap that summons a box to your door, shopping has transformed from a chore you put off into a quiet little cure. If this journey kept you company tonight, consider sharing it with a friend who might find the story as strange and lovely as we do.